Chuck Searcy. I'm from Athens, Georgia. When I came to Vietnam in 1967, I couldn't find Vietnam on a map.
Chuck Searcy enlisted in the U.S. Army from 1966 to 1969. He was assigned to the 519th Military Intelligence Battalion in what was then Saigon.
For me, Vietnam was an unclosed chapter in the sense that when I left, it was a painful experience, and it's one of the reasons that I hoped that I would come back and in better circumstances. When I went back for the first time as a tourist in 1992 with an old Army buddy, we traveled the country from north to south, south to north, and I was astonished at the welcome that we got from the Vietnamese people. And when I saw how they were still struggling to rebuild the country after the war, while there was still a U.S. embargo, they couldn't export or import anything, I thought that I would like to be part of that process, and ended up staying, working on humanitarian projects related to the consequences of the war, which is unexploded ordnance.
Quang Tri Central Province was subjected to the heaviest bombing campaign in the world history. More bombs are said to have been dropped here in Quang Tri than in all of Europe during the World War II. 40 years after, more than 83% of the land in Quang Tri is still contaminated with unexploded ordnance, or UXOs. Some 7,000 casualties have been caused by UXOs in Quang Tri alone since 1975. A third of these were children. The facts and figures have kept Chuck Searcy, who has lived in Hanoi for 2 decades now, flying back and forth to Quang Tri province. The former U.S. Army intelligence analyst was the one to help launch Project Renew in Quang Tri in 2001 to clean up unexploded ordnance and provide medical assistance, rehabilitation, and income generation for UXO victims.
Chuck, you've been engaged with the mission of saving lives of the people here from the threat of UXO. So can you give us more details about what you've been doing and what's the Project Renew been doing to solve the situation?
The encouraging thing that we've all learned is that the problem can be solved. In the past we thought, oh, this is such a terrible catastrophe that it's going to go on and on and on for years and years and years, and people will continue to die and they'll continue to lose their arms and legs and eyes from these accidents. The truth is, the problem can be managed, and the goal that we all seek now, instead of trying to clean up every bomb and mine, because that's impractical, that's actually impossible, instead of focusing on technically cleaning up every bomb and mine, now we're focusing on how to keep people safe.
But how to keep people safe? First of all, children and adults can be safe if they are educated about the risks posed by UXOs. Therefore, the Project Renew team set up this Mind Action Visitor Center in Dong Ha, Quang Tri Province, where the locals can learn about the risks of UXOs and damages through updated facts and figures, exhibits and images. More than 8,000 children in Quang Tri were provided with guidance on what to do when they encounter deadly explosive remnants of war around their homes and gardens, roadsides, and schoolyards.
Now we see a way to really manage the problem so that children can go to school and feel safe, so that farmers and adults can be confident that they can live their lives every day without the threat of these bombs and mines. They know what to do when they find a bomb. They participate in the solution by calling the EOD teams, alerting them, allowing them to come immediately, specifically to the point where the ordnance is, and clean it up.
Quang Tri province in the center of Vietnam is the province that have the most damage during the wartime and even until today. Now, 40 years after the end of the war, this soil is contaminated with a lot of unexploded ordnance. So striving to save the life of the people from the threat of UXOs like this is the mission of Project Renew. And let's now join into one of their day of working in the field, trying to save life of the local people and therefore creating a better future for the local. This cluster bomb was found by a farmer who was taking his buffaloes to the river nearby. The farmer called Project Renew's EOD team that immediately came here with equipment to sweep the whole area. An UXO demolition was prepared shortly afterwards.
Được sự cho phép của Bộ Chỉ huy quân sự tỉnh Quảng Trị, đội đà phá bom mìn chúng tôi tiến hành hủy nổ một số vật liệu nổ rất nguy hiểm tại khu vực nhà chủ rừng. Alo, còn khoảng 2 quân đội đơn vị chúng tôi sẽ triển khai hủy nổ một loạt bom mìn cực kỳ nguy hiểm ngay tại khu vực này.
Project Renew is run by the Vietnamese but receives funding from veterans, private donors, and government grants from the United States and Norway, Japan, and Ireland. During the first 9 months of 2015, almost 500 UXO discoveries reported by local people have resulted in more than 1,700 explosive items being recovered or made safe. Quang Tri province saw 50 UXO accidents every year at the time of Project Renew's conception in 2001. Project Renew's EOD team have safely removed and destroyed 27,000 cluster bombs, grenades, landmines, and other ordnance since 2007. And in 2014, no one died from UXO in the Project Renew's area of operations.
What you've been doing here, it's so adorable. So what's motivated you and your workmate here at Project Renew to do so over the past year?
A lot of us regret the consequences of the war, what happened, and we feel some responsibility to try to make things better. And it's not, for me, it's not a matter of guilt. It's a matter of responsibility, and that's a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It's something where we can work together to make life better for the people of Vietnam and to face up to our responsibilities.
Mine Victims Assistance is one of the 4 core missions of Project Renew, helped develop by its international advisor, Chuck Searcy. This is a workshop in Hai Long District organized by the Hai Long Blind Association, partly funded by Project Renew as an effective way to support local UXO victims. At the moment, 15 blind people are making toothpicks, brooms, and incense at the workshop.
This is part of Project Renew's victim assistance program, helping people who've been injured by bombs and mines. And a lot of people in Quang Tri province who have had accidents have lost their eyesight. So it's a very good way for blind people to help themselves and to show that disabled people can do many things and can be very productive members of society.
Thanks to this cooperation with Hai Long Blind Association in Quang Tri, Project Renew has funded vocational training and workshops for these blind people. 50 blind people in Hai Long District can now earn independent incomes through making toothpicks and incenses like this. UXOs left behind following the war 40 years ago have not only taken many people's eyesight, these deadly things have also cost them their flesh, bone, their limbs, and even their lives. 53-year-old Nguyễn Xuân Thiết in Hai Long District was a scrap metal collector trying to break a bombshell for scraps when it exploded years ago. The accident took both of his legs and 4 fingers off the left hand of this left-handed man. For the past 5 years, thanks to a pair of artificial legs and braces provided by Project Renew, Thiet can do tours on his own feet, although these are not his flesh, bone, and skin. Thiet is among the 930 UXO survivors in Quảng Trị province that have received artificial limbs and other assistive devices from the Project Renew to restore their mobility. To heal the wounds of war, American veterans returned to Vietnam in peace and formed an NGO in Vietnam in 2009 called Veterans for Peace Chapter 160, the Hòa Bình or Peace Chapter. Chuck Searcy is now the vice president of the Veteran for Peace Chapter 160 in Vietnam, whose mission is to provide assistance to Vietnamese people still affected by the legacy of the American war in Vietnam. To raise awareness about these issues, as well as some money to help victims and their families, the Veteran for Peace Chapter 160 conduct annual springtime tour of Vietnam, geared toward peace-oriented veterans and associates.
We offer the opportunity for veterans and non-veterans to come to Vietnam. Together we represent a lot of Americans who feel very goodwill toward Vietnam. We're happy to see the reconciliation process continuing, and who also are working to bring to a close the tragic legacies of the war that still remain, unexploded ordnance and Agent Orange.
Now in its 4th year in 2015, Veteran for Peace Chapter 160 Spring Tour in Vietnam was a big success. The delegation was among the few allowed to visit the environmental remediation of dioxin contamination site within the Da Nang military airport. Right here at Da Nang Airport, more than 50 years ago, the Agent Orange dioxin was stored at this very place, and it was then loaded onto the U.S. warplane and then sprayed onto the jungle where the Vietnamese fighters are hiding during the wartime. And now, as you can see, like more than half a century have passed, but this is still a hotspot of dioxin contamination. Just like the war legacy of UXOs that continue to cause injury and death here in Vietnam 50 years later, Agent Orange dioxin, the most toxic substance known to man, remains in certain hotspots in the environment, as well as in the genes of those originally exposed and their younger generations.
My thoughts are it's a shame we didn't clean this up, or the companies that made this stuff didn't clean it up when they spilled it. And that it's taken so long. But those of us that were troops, we didn't know. We were told that it was okay for us, that it wouldn't hurt us.
Better late than never, the Da Nang Airport Remediation Project is being implemented here by United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, and the Vietnamese Ministries of National Defense. The project, commenced in 2011, is to clean about 80,000 cubic meters of dioxin-contaminated sediment and soil based on the thermal treatment strategy. Facilities like these are to heat the contaminated soil and sediment to a high temperature, minimum of 335 degrees Celsius, to destroy the dioxin.
It's a good model for what we might do in the future. There are areas that have been identified by the Vietnamese government as toxic, and they need to be treated. They need to be cleaned up. But Da Nang is one of the biggest, Bien Hoa is another big one, and the others are much smaller. So it seems that the problem can be solved.
From 1961 to 1971, 80 million liters of 20 kinds of toxic chemicals, principally the substance known as Agent Orange dioxin, was sprayed in Vietnam. The country now has more than 3 million Agent Orange dachshund victims, including those from its second and third generation. Clear evidence can be seen here at the center of Da Nang Association of Victims of Agent Orange Dachshund, not so far from the Da Nang Air Base. This facility in Hoa Vang District is a daycare center and school for about 150 Agent Orange Dachshund children in the city who are suffering from mental or physical disabilities and therefore unable to study at public schools or be treated at other social centers. Over the years, Veteran for Peace Chapter 160 has helped the unfortunate children here live a normal life, joined in vocational classes that might bring them the opportunity to earn money on their own. But first of all, students at these centers are taught how to become more confident and release depression through recreational activities like these. Vân Canh Friendship Village in Hanoi for Agent Orange victims was founded by George Mizo, an American Vietnam War veteran, about 20 years ago. This village is now a campus housing up to 120 children suffering from mental or physical disabilities. Today, upon their visit to this village, these foreign guests from the Veteran for Peace Chapter 160 delegation joined one of their special education classes.
Everybody who comes on our tour is required to bring a minimum of $1,000 US. So at the end of the tour, we decide, where do you want to leave your money? So we'll raise about $21,000 this year. Some will come here, some will go to the hospital in Ho Chi Minh, some will go to families, and we let the tour guide, the tour people decide where they put their money. We do this every year.
Over the past 4 years, 54 U.S. veterans and peace activists have joined the spring tour and donated nearly $200,000 US to humanitarian projects in Vietnam, including bomb clearance, Agent Orange Dachshund victims, hospitals, orphanages, and schools. Having been living in Vietnam for 20 years as a peacemaker, Chuck Searcy also acts as a bridge to connect Vietnamese and American veterans who were once enemies.
Tôi với ông Giác này, tôi gặp ông ấy cách đây 5-6 năm ở phố Cao Ba Quát, khi cái người ông vẫn như thế. Thế này hắn nhớ ra ông thông minh quá, ông vẫn nhớ lại được tôi và tôi vẫn nhớ, tôi tiến về ít, tôi xúc động.
Vietnamese people, especially veterans, are generous in their attitude and respectful of American veterans who come back to make their country a better place today, Chuck said.
They will tell you over and over again, and you know what we suffered through because you suffered through the same thing. So we're brothers.
We think of veterans as very important in the relations between the two former enemies. Now that when we sit together, talk together as friends, it's a huge change. And if people like veterans can talk with each other, why not others?
2015 marks the 40th anniversary since the end of the war in Vietnam, but there are wounds from that war that have not been healed. That is why Chuck Searcy, a U.S. veteran, has moved to Vietnam, make it home so that he can fulfill his mission to clean up what the war left behind in this country.
this is our first fishes.
Finally success, more than a snail.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Time Out. My name is Anh and this is Florian who will accompany me today.
Hello everyone, I arrived here in June to work for 2 years.
So what do you usually do in your free time?
I hang out in cafes or bars or cook with friends. But today I want to try something different and go fishing.
Cool. Actually, I have never been to fishing before. So should we go to a fishing store for some little introduction?
I think that's a good idea.
Let's go.
Let's go.
A rod and bait are obviously the most important gear for an angler. Professionals have their own set that include many kinds of rod, reel, sinker, chairs, and so on. Amateurs like us will need to buy some bait and rent out a rod at the fishing site.
Okay, so I think we need to rent later, but we can buy the bait here.
Chị ơi, thế thì những cái mồi như này là có cái gì thế ạ?
Có cái ngô, khoai, nói chung là nhiều thứ lắm chị ạ. Nói chung là làm cái này thì nó nhiều thứ lặt vặt lắm. Câu lưỡi chùm là thì phải nói là cái thứ này. Cái này đi đợi chị cho thêm một gói mồi B1 với cả một chai mồi B này vào, có thể là hôm nay sẽ được nhiều hiệu quả. Cảm ơn ạ.
So now we have all the baits here.
Yeah, it looks interesting. And in Germany, usually we use worms, but fish here are obviously vegetarian and live healthy.
We head to the fishing pond after getting the bait for some $5 US.
Is the pond far from here?
It's not too far. It's in the city. It's in Đông Anh.
I hope that the rain will be better soon.
That's right. That's right.
It reminds me of my first fishing experience as a kid.
Oh, how was it?
Raining most of the time. We were
For $15 more, we can fish for a couple hours and rent out the rods. The rain gets more heavy when we arrive, but we decide to try fishing in the rain for once. It did add chill to our trip.
So we finally get to the pond. What do you think?
It's great. It's green. It's still, but still close to the city, and it's
very
like
close.
The countryside.
Yeah. Right. So we are new here, so I invite a fishing pro today to guide us. Let's meet him.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Đình Văn is a professional angler. He's also a judge in many fishing competitions across the country. We're lucky enough to have him as the guide today. It's not difficult to find a commercial fishing pond in the outskirts of Hanoi. Besides professional anglers, many amateurs choose fishing as a way of entertainment. So fishing ponds also provide eating and drinking services. Now, Văn shows us how to set things up.
Ba cái cần này thì có thể là bắt được tất cả các loại cá, bởi vì khi mà thính mà mình đã mua thính này là thính tổng hợp. Tổng hợp là mình có thể là bắt được đa số
nhiều loại cá
khác nhau.
Vâng.
Ra cần rồi thì mình sẽ lấy phao để đưa vào cần, đưa vào đây.
So Florian is trying to get the hook. Ooh, so you're the fish now.
We catch a fish.
Khi mà đến hồ ấy thì ta bỏ mồi cái mồi dụ cá, là cái mồi tổng hợp mà mình đã mua ở cửa hàng, thì ta trộn đều lên và sẽ nắm lại từng nắm một như thế này, và ta hất ra cái chỗ mà ta chuẩn bị thành công.
Mr. Van told us to make these balls of bait and throw it onto the water.
Okay, let's try.
So,
Let's do it.
Looks like snowball fight.
Và bóp cái mồi bèn lại và đặt cái lưỡi câu này đứng vào giữa mồi, và ta giữ cái cho nó chặt. Sau đó ta về cái mồi này lại. Đó. Sao để vừa cái mồm con cá nó vào đó. Kỹ năng cơ bản nhất thì theo mình thì chủ yếu là cái
sự kiên trì. Khi mà mình kiên trì được rồi thì mình câu được con cá, khi đấy mình cũng cảm thấy rất là thú vị. Cá rất là khôn, khi mà nó mắc câu rồi nó sẽ chạy, và cái cần câu và dây câu làm sao để kết hợp thật hài hòa cái cách dòng cá để ta bắt được con cá đó.
You got something? You got something? Congratulations, Florian. You got a snail.
Yes, great. My Vietnamese friends always want me to eat snail soup, so I can start now.
You got one now.
Yeah.
I feel something. It's kind of heavy. Woo! We got one. So this is our first fishes.
Finally success.
Yeah, we don't know what kind it is, but great. Good job. So next time in your free time, try fishing because it's a really interesting feeling when you catch a fish. Does it remind you of fishing time in Germany?
Yeah, it's quite similar, very relaxing, and sitting here in our nice chairs,
Right.
table with beers.
Right, yeah.
And so, to wish good luck for fishing in Germany, we say Petri Heil.
Peter Heil. Peter Heil.
Petri Heil.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Fishing is not simply catching fish. We're happy to sit on bank and drop a plain hook and bait into the water while we relax and enjoy the scenery and some beers. Our segment of Time Out has just wrapped up this episode of Expat Living. If you would like to provide feedbacks or comments on anything you see here in our program, feel free to email to us at expatliving@vtv.vn. You can also log on to vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go for more of our program. Thank you very much for being with us. This is Expat Living on VTV International.